So while you've seen all the action from Wales Rally GB, one name missing was Kris Meeke, but we've now learned that he's going to join Toyota for next year. Jack, is this a good move?
It's an interesting one, isn't it? We've not had too much Kris Meeke in recent months. He's been hiding away and obviously been very busy looking for a new deal for next year. He's 39 years of age, so this is really his last opportunity now to go for that World Rally Championship he's always wanted. He's worked very, very hard over his career to manufacture these championships, and remember when he joined Citroen a few years ago and sort of really impressed in Finland there when he made his debut and managed to assert himself there and really take a hold of the C3's development. Didn't quite go to plan in that year, and he's had some issues this year. We saw him with the crashes and things like that, so it's an interesting one from Tommi Mäkinen. I think what we have seen is we've seen Jari-Matti Latvala move to Toyota, and he's crashed a lot less since he's been there. He's worked very well with Tommi Mäkinen, so that could be an area where Tommi, four-time World Rally Champion, can really help out Kris Meeke in terms of his mentality, how he approaches each rally and how he goes about it. One thing is for certain, he's got a very, very good teammate in Tanak, and if he does want to win a World Rally Championship, he's going to have to get up to speed very, very quickly to match Oit, because we've seen how brilliant Oit's been this season and how quickly he's got up to speed. We saw Latvala saying at the start of the season that he thought Tanak was going to take a little while to bed in and wasn't going to be up to speed straight away. In actual fact, what we've seen is Oit completely destroy his Toyota teammates on his way to fighting for this year's World Rally Championship. So it's an interesting move from Tommi. It's definitely one that comes with a lot of risks. We've seen how many crashes Kris has had, and we've seen his age. Is he really going to change now after all these years? He's 39 years of age. Are the crashes going to stop? If anyone can do it, maybe it is Tommi, and Kris is definitely going to have the car underneath him to really challenge for rally wins next year.
Considering how strong the Toyota has been, particularly in recent rallies as well, is this now Meeke's absolute best chance of winning a World Championship, considering the career he's had?
Well, we said this with a Citroen, didn't we, when he had the chance to develop the car from start to finish. Kris, very accomplished engineer, worked for M-Sport for a few years and knows how to set up a car and how to develop one, and we didn't quite see that with the C3, unfortunately, and how much of that is Kris's fault is very difficult to work out. And I don't think it was, I don't think a big part of that was Kris's fault. Now he's going into a car that we know is well developed. It's got a great engine. They've done development work on that all through the year. We've seen the car developing massively in terms of the suspension setup and things like that at different events. Rally GB was a perfect example of that. They really struggled on the wet mud last year at Wales Rally GB, and this year much stronger. Absolutely dominated, had the top three at one point, and really looked the clear favourite for that rally victory until Oit's problems. So I think he's going in with a team that is developing quickly. Clearly got a lot of backing from Japan and from Toyota. So yes, in my opinion, it is his best chance, because we've seen how quickly that Toyota car's developed this year to match the Hyundai, which was arguably the quickest car last year. And we've seen Hyundai and Toyota leave M-Sport behind a little bit in the development race this year. So definitely Kris's best opportunity, and the biggest problem for him is going to be the person sat in the car next to him, who's Oit Tanak.
Looking back at Wales Rally as well, we've got a huge title race in front of us now, more twists and turns than the average Welsh rally stage. So how do you see it going now? It's
been a massive swing, and we saw the events last weekend in Wales Rally GB. Going into the event, Oit Tanak was 13 points behind Thierry Neuville, and Ogier was 23 behind. Coming up to the exit of the weekend now, things are just starting to settle after a very busy weekend, and now Sébastien Ogier is just 7 points behind. So it feels like every time you rule the five-time Frenchman out, it's pointless, because he always finds a way to get those points. He always finds a way to worm his way back into that hunt and really challenges. So it's been a brilliant season so far. Very underrated by people outside of rallying, I think. We've got three manufacturers: Hyundai with Thierry Neuville, Toyota with Oit Tanak, and M-Sport Ford with Sébastien Ogier. All three going for the championship. All three very good drivers. You've got Ogier, who's the proven five-time champion, and Thierry Neuville and Oit Tanak, both sort of younger pretenders looking to take their first title. Both undoubtedly rapid. Both have had problems with crashes or inconsistency. So this has really been their year to step up, and we saw Neuville crash quite a few times last year when he was ahead, which was is always very difficult to bounce back from mentally. But this year we've seen a lot less of that from him. Arguably his only mistake of this year, his proper mistake, was Wales Rally GB last weekend, when he fell into a ditch on stage 11 on the Saturday, and that was from second place. So a massive switch in the championship. That's what led Ogier to close the gap so much by winning the event. And of course we had Tanak retire in Sweetland with the radiator problem. So really dramatic weekend. And every time you think you've worked out what's going to happen in this year's WRC, it completely turns on its head. You've got 3 very, very talented drivers who are all capable of making mistakes, all got cars that are capable of having problems, and it's just creating such a brilliant end to the season.
Obviously, Tanak was on for 4 wins in a row going into Wales Rally. He was absolutely sensational on stages like Brennig on the Friday. Do you see him just carrying off where he left off in the next stage, or will there be a little bit of a struggle with confidence?
It's an interesting one. Spain's a tricky event. We've got that first day on gravel and then switch to the tarmac afterwards. But the thing with Oit we've seen him go from winning Finland to Germany in the space of less than a month. So you couldn't really have 2 different events really. Germany, very much a tarmac rally sprint effectively. There's no holding back, there's no easing into the stages, it's bang on the pace straight away. If you're not on the pace, you're out of it on the first day. It's as simple as that. Finland, obviously a lot more flowing, fast gravel stages, requires a very different type of car, different setup, and we've seen Oit dominate in both of those events. So moving forward, even though we saw GB, we saw him have problems, the car did look to be running a little bit low at the front, and eventually it took the sump guard off and that damaged the radiator. That's what put him out of the event. I doubt we'll see that problem in Spain. I don't think they'll be running too low, and I think the gravel's different. It's not quite as wet. It's much more dry gravel in Spain. So I don't think we'll see a similar problem that we saw. And Toyota will definitely be sharpening up the front end of that car to make sure the problem doesn't happen again. And then when we're on to the tarmac stages, we saw how brilliant he was in Germany. And Oit's never really been regarded as a tarmac specialist or someone who's been particularly quick on tarmac, and he was absolutely rapid in Germany. And I think that's a mixture of Oit really coming to the fore and showing what he can do, but also how good that car has been this year and how much it's improved. So we're in for a brilliant battle with Spain. Like I said, gravel on the first day, tarmac on the rest, and then we've got Australia coming up, which is a similar kind of dryness to the Spanish gravel, but very different in characteristics. So it's going to be interesting, and I think looking at what we've learned over the past four rounds before GB, Oit was dominant. He was dominant again on Rally GB until the problem. So you can only say it looks like it's going to continue.
Obviously, Neville's in a bit of a different position. He's leading the championship. It looks, from the outside looking in, it looks like he's been a little bit conservative in the way he's approached recent rallies. Has he got to change that, do you think, now?
I think Kyle and I have really struggled on Rally GB in recent years. It's the characteristics of the stages doesn't seem to suit the car at all. In that situation, that's the kind of situation where Sébastien Ogier would have turned that into a podium, and we saw Thierry Neuville slip off on stage 11 on Saturday. So that's the kind of area where we've seen Sébastien Ogier be so strong, is that he wouldn't have made that mistake in most cases and would have picked up a lot of points there. So Thierry is still working on his consistency, still improving his consistency, and that's in terms of his driving, but also in terms of setting up the car properly. Seen on so many rallies, Hyundai really struggle on the first day. They seem to, whether it's work with the test or whether it's something else, it's very difficult to kind of pinpoint. But they do seem to struggle on the first day more than the other manufacturers. So Thierry's got to work on that, but also he needs to maximise every opportunity he has, because he's fighting against Oit Tanak in a brilliant car. He's fighting against Sébastien Ogier, who's a 5-time champion. You really have to be perfect in those situations, and it's difficult to sort of hang Thierry for what he's done over the weekend there, because it's probably his first proper mistake all year, when he made quite a few more last year. We've seen a massive improvement at Thierry Neuville, but when things are this close, you just can't afford to make mistakes like that. And I think it's a mixture of Hyundai not being ready for the GB conditions once again, and also Thierry just making that small mistake.
And last but certainly not least, what does Ogier need to do to make sure another Sébastien title? He's got an interesting end to the year, because you can only say, looking at what we've seen over the past few rounds, that he's got the worst car of the 3 challenging for the title. So he's going to have to use everything that his experience has taught him, which is considerable given he's won 5 World Championships. He's not too bad in the car. So he needs to work on staying consistent, taking the maximum amount of points, and watching for Oit Tanak and Thierry Neuville having problems, because we've seen both of those things happen last weekend. There's no reason why they can't happen again, and we've seen, if anything, if you're going to criticise the Ford for not being as quick as the other 2, it's much more robust. We've seen it have much less problems reliability-wise. So for me, I think Ogier just needs to continue what he's doing and score as many points as he can. No one's going to score more points than Sébastien Ogier in that car. He will get the best out of it, and he will make sure that it's finishing as high up as it possibly can. So we obviously talked plenty about the contenders for Wales Rally GB victory. One person we've not spoken about is Alfred Evans, who looked like he was going to be in contention, fell away.
Disappointing weekend for M-Sport, wasn't it, in a lot of ways?
It was, yeah. We saw last year Elvin become the first Welsh winner of Wales Rally GB, which is incredible, really. When you look at the history of the event and how many brilliant Welsh competitors there's been over the years, it's amazing to think that he was the first one. Obviously, last year it was a little bit contentious, probably, because some people thought the DMAC tyres were what making the difference for Elvin, and we saw him run away with the event. The tyres obviously helping. We knew the tyres were going to be good on the event. We predicted that quite comfortably. But I think there was always some doubters there who thought the event win was completely down to the tyres. So Elvin came straight out of the blocks on Thursday and Friday, absolutely rapid on the pace, second overall in the rally behind Tanak, and quite comfortably looking like a rally contender. I think he was 8 seconds behind when he retired. So really, really close. Really nice to see him come through and show that that last year wasn't a fluke, and that it was a genuine performance, because he's had a very difficult year. Lots of retirements, lots of dropping down the order to help out Sébastien Ogier. It's been a very tough year for him, but that pace was very encouraging. Unfortunately, after that, he had a sensor break, so that managed to put him out. It did cause a misfire, and then eventually had to retire. Malcolm Wilson said some interesting stuff, and you'll be able to read about that in Autosport and Motorsport News this week, about wanting to have some answers from McLaren on what happened with the sensor and why it had broken, because it's not a problem they've seen before. So a sad end to the rally for Elvin. Teemu Suninen also had a problem as well, and he was out. So not a great weekend for M-Sport, but if you'd have put that to Malcolm on the finishing ramp in Llandudno while Sébastien Ogier was stood on top of the car with the trophy, I'm sure he wouldn't have been too upset by that. It's going to be good to see how M-Sport deal with the pace that Hyundai and Toyota have showed in recent rounds going into the next two, to see how the championship plays out.
So plenty to be resolved in the driver market, and with a title fight still to be decided. Make sure you keep up with the latest issues of Autosport, autosport.com and Motorsport News.